Hello and welcome back to Developing Your Operating System. This is part 3, Operating Strategies and Tactics. All right, in parts 1 and 2, we talked about how we connected the dots between getting more throughput dollars through your business, how that relates directly to the constraint process B, and how from that relationship, we establish relationship to A and to C, and then cascade down to the shop floor level. All right, and we define the roles of each of those processes, starting with B as in maximize throughput. A and C are do not diminish B, protect their capacity, and do this at the lowest cost. And again, I want to re-emphasize, lowest cost is not the purpose of your business. Okay, no business ever became wildly successful by doing nothing but cutting costs. Be careful if you're in a cost-cutting mindset. You make far more money producing and pushing more throughput than you do in reducing costs. And this recognizes that process. All right, so what do we do to maximize throughput? Well, to maximize throughput, we want to start thinking about the strategies that are associated with that. And so let's see, what kind of things might we do to maximize throughput? Well, we might run, if we're Roger's shop, run through lunch and breaks. We might minimize changeovers. We might practice rapid changeovers, which is sometimes called SMED, which stands for single minute exchange of dies. We might apply those principles to our changeovers. We would definitely be looking at reliability improvements, right? How do we get more product through this piece of equipment? If it's a piece of equipment, well, certainly having it up and available and processing efficiently more time is key. We look at minimizing processes losses through projects like Six Sigma, right? How do we tune things up so that higher yields or fewer defects either are produced at B, or if A or C are impacting it there, but we'll get to those processes later. All right, so once you have your strategies in place, you want to then convert them into the tactics, right? So what are we going to do to implement a strategy? So if we're going to run through lunch and breaks, we might need to hire an assistant or train somebody in the process. We're going to minimize changeovers. We might want to do a project to revise the scheduling process. If we're going to do rapid changeovers or a SMED project, we might do a task team to design what that looks like. Reliability improvements might require some maintenance tactics design, and minimize processing loss. Again, it might be a Six Sigma project, right? Once we have the tactics, then we want to figure out who does this work, right? Because everything we're doing to maximize throughput and implement these strategies by implementing these tactics ends up as somebody's work, all right? And so we would define the assistant's task and probably the role relationship between the assistant and the operator. We would define the scheduler's processes. How do they do their work? What do they do? How do they do it? How do they report it? What does success look like at the task level? Same thing with changeovers. Same thing with maintenance. Same thing with control and response plans. All of this work is done to take the concept of making more money and actualize it through, you do that by doing these things. And by doing these things well, you end up maximizing throughput at B, all right? And that's what we're looking for. The idea of an operating system is connect the dots between how your business makes money and the work that each and every individual does. So they can see the connection between, if I do this well, the business makes more money, or we are more successful, right? And that's what we're looking for to do. All right, so by doing this, we have connected throughput dollars, that is the rate at which we're making money, putting money to the bottom line, to how the constraint is operated, to the work that's being done at the constraint. And that explicit connection is the basis for engagement and improvement in your business, right? And so, in a more complicated business, we might dig all the way down and be working, at the sub-process level of the constraint within the constraint within the constraint, right? In our mind, let's go back to the Cliffs iron ore mine, right? We had 3 processes, A, B, and C, and some inventories in between. And before we got there, they had implemented a Lean Six Sigma program, right? And they had, of course, their default operating system in place where everything was equal, everything was equivalent. And the question became, where do you do lean projects, which in their case meant 5S, right? Workplace cleanup and design, which for them was basically cleanup, or Six Sigma projects, right? Reducing variability. So everything's equal. You get thousands of different places, literally, that you could work. And so they just arbitrarily chose based on interests of the black belt. And they did years worth of Lean Six Sigma projects and didn't see a dime to the bottom line because they were working in areas that nobody really cared about, because other than the black belt who was doing the project to get certified, right? Rather than doing a project to make money, they're worried about doing projects to get their certification. It's really kind of crazy. But that played out in hundreds, if not thousands and thousands of businesses across the United States as they launched Lean Six Sigma programs, right? So they were struggling. So the first thing we did, we came on board, was we developed the role relationships, and we understood that all processes weren't created equally. It took, in this case, the better part of 2 days to map out the operating strategy, at least mentally, and get it 95% right, because it took 2 days to tour this process. Place is massive, right? And so we understood once by questioning, what happens in this inventory, what happens in this inventory, how do things work, what's going on, what limits, where do you have the most fire drills? Asking the right set of questions allowed me to establish what the relationships were through their departments and further cascade. So their concentrator was a process inside the concentrator, was a process inside the concentrator, and map out very specific areas that we would work. And so rather than just looking at this massive operation, say, oh my God, it's so complex, where do we work? We were able to quickly and efficiently identify the most limiting process that we can impact. And we did a SMED operation on this. And because we were tasked to do 5S, we did SMED with some workplace design, right? Very focused, first project out of the barrel, because when you're a consultant and you come in an operation like this, you have one chance to get it right? And so the most leveraged process and the most leveraged process and the most leveraged process was the maintenance work done during shutdowns on a piece of equipment in the constraint, right? And so we set about working on those things. Took us a little while to get everything in order, but when we did, the very first, quote, 5S project we did was on a maintenance task, actually 5 maintenance tasks in a shutdown on one piece of equipment, and we put $1 million to the bottom line of business. Right out of the gun. No question, that's what the controller said it was worth, $1 million. And that work that we did replicated every few weeks. So it wasn't like it was one and done. It was $1 million this week, a few weeks later, another $1 million, a few weeks later, another $1 million. And the bug caught. Everybody was excited. We started a process of continuous improvement that started solving problems where they mattered the most. And we did that by mapping out the relationships between all the different processes, understanding what the role relationships were and what needed to be done in each of those processes for them to fulfill that role successfully. And once you map that out, and again, this is not rocket science, this is pretty simple stuff. Once you map that out, you can say, oh, if I'm going to make an impact in this process, then I need to work on this aspect of this process, which will impact these work tasks for these people. And you connect the dots. And you connect it all the way back to the business making money. What's the result of this? Over a period of years, drove nearly $100 million in costs out of the system. Now, the irony of this is we were not after costs. All right? This was a real documented and sustained impact of this work. But by getting the right people in the right roles, doing the right work, and thinking about the business in the right way, and developing their operating strategy, and cascading that operating strategy into the strategies and tactics and work of everybody in the business, all geared toward getting more throughput, more tons through the process. The goal was tons through the process. The results were not only tons through the process, but because we got tons through the process, lower cost per ton and substantially lower cost to operate the processes. $100 million. That was 10 years ago. That's $1 billion that Cliffs has put to their bottom line since we finished this work. $1 billion. Guess they could have bought their downstream customers using that money. Pretty cool stuff. You can do this in your business. Maybe $1 million for a 5S project is in your cards, but there's significant dollars in doing the right work in the right place, and it all starts with your operating strategy. So get busy. Call me at 216-533-1387 if you have questions or want help to get started. You can reach me at rickphelps@actioncoach.com. Visit our website at phelpsltd.com. And get on it. Figure out your operating strategy, your operating system, cascade it to strategies, tactics, and work focused on making more money now and in the future. And your business will make more money now in the future. Have a profitable and safe week.